Okay. Test Dalet.
Yes.
Oh, test Dalet. If the daughter of a Yisrael was betrothed to a Kohen, or pregnant by a Kohen, or awaiting Yibum by a Kohen, to a Kohen, and similarly the daughter of a Kohen to a Yisrael, she may not eat Truma. If the daughter of a Yisrael was betrothed to a Levi, or pregnant by a Levi, or waiting Yibum to a Levi, and similarly the daughter of a Levi to a Yisrael, she may not eat the tithe.
Okay, so just pause a second. This is a minority. This is a minority opinion, which is it's
Second one. The second one with the Levi.
Is that's right. The Levi, it's minority opinion. It's the opinion of Rabbi Meir, I think. Yes, Rabbi Meir, who holds that that only Levium are allowed to eat Maser Rishon, that is.
Okay. All right.
So we hold that Maser Rishon there's no restrictions. Anyone's allowed to eat Maser Rishon. It's just that it's a monetary obligation to give it to the Levi if you can prove he's a Levi. Okay, but there's but it works out just nicely for the logic in the Mishnah. If we just we'll adopt the view of Rabbi Meir for now and just see if that is what permits her to eat Maser is if she's is only if she's married to a Levi.
Okay. Okay. If the daughter of a Yisrael married a Kohen, she may not eat Truma. If he died and she has a child by him,
hold on. You didn't finish the last.
I didn't finish it. Oh, okay. The daughter of a Levi was betrothed to a Kohen, or pregnant by a Kohen, or awaiting Yibum to a Kohen, and similarly the daughter of a Kohen to a Levi, she may not eat Truma or the tithe. Don't we finish that? Okay. The daughter of a Yisrael married to a Kohen, she may eat Truma. If he died and she has a child by him, she may eat Truma. If she then married a Levi, she may not eat the tithe. If he died and she has a child by him, she may eat the tithe. If she then married a Yisrael, she may not eat Truma on the tithe or the tithe. If he died and she has a child by him, she may not eat Truma or the tithe. If a child by the Yisrael died, she may eat the tithe, and if a child by the Levi died, she may eat Truma. If a child by the Kohen died, she may not eat Truma or the tithe.
That's so everything. So basically, it teaches this chain of dependencies. It's like a stack of
right.
Where whatever her last status is, her husband or her son keeps her in the fold.
Right.
And we'll see exactly the reverse thing. I'm not sure exactly why Mishnah Vav had to be taught once we've already learned Mishnah Hey, except it just adds in the pasuk at the end of the Mishnah. But carry on. Let's do the Chazara on it.
If the daughter of a Kohen married a Yisrael, she may not eat Truma. If he died and she has a child by him, she may not eat Truma. If she then married a Levi, she may eat the tithe. And if he died and she has a child by him, she may eat the tithe. If she then married a Kohen, she may eat Truma. If he died and she has a child by him, then she may eat Truma. If a child by the Kohen died and she may not eat Truma. If a child by the Levi died, she may not eat the Truma, the tithe. If a child by the Yisrael died, she returned to her father's house. Concerning this, it was said she returned to her father's house as in her youth, and she may eat it from her father's bread. Just want to check one thing. It says here, wait. The daughter of a Kohen married a Yisrael, and okay, I was just getting confused on something here. All right, okay, I got it. All right. Okay, I'm good. I'm ready.
Okay.
Cool. Take your coffee. Wait, you were just about to take a coffee.
Coffee is a priority, I understand. All right, very good. So you've got a woman whose husband goes overseas. Okay. And now the Ubal Arula Meis Balech. So came a witness to say, I'm sorry, your husband died.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, of course, we're talking in the times when you don't have, immediate access to the internet and to verify and whatever. Somebody comes from overseas and said, I'm sorry, your husband died. Normally, we need two witnesses to establish a fact like this. Okay, but Chazal made a particular takana for a woman who's married, that we can believe any one witness. That we can believe any one witness that her husband is dead, and will permit her to remarry. So they made the special thing. It was called what was it called? It is Almana or something like that. It was, but at any rate, it was a special, a massive heter that they made so that a woman shouldn't remain an aguna for the rest of her life just because there weren't two witnesses, two kosher witnesses, never mind, that her husband died. They permit her to remarry, but at the same time as they introduced their heter over there, they placed an enormous penalty on the woman herself if she to incentivize her to check that this really is true. And we'll see that in this Mishna, that she's that the burden of responsibility is on the woman to be very, very certain that her husband actually is dead,
right,
before she goes ahead and remarries. So now here's that situation where a lone witness comes along and says in front of Beis Din, I saw that her husband died overseas.
Okay, there are two women that have two women.
And the Beis Din will then say, okay, you have permission, you can go and marry. And she went and she remarried. Now she's living with another man. Back from the dead. There was a mistake. It was malicious or whatever it was. But she was misled about her husband's death, and now she's been living with another man. She has to leave both of these men, the first husband and the second husband. She's not allowed to live with either of them now.
But she had two witnesses that said he died, though, right?
One witness.
I thought we needed two. You said.
Okay, going back. That was the special thing that Chazal said, is that you only need one witness. Only the court will permit her to remarry on the basis of one witness, and it's not even a kosher witness. It could be on the basis of a woman, a slave. Anyone can come to the court and say, we saw that her husband died, and this is going to be enough evidence for the court to say, okay, you're allowed to remarry.
That's pretty makel, though, to do that, to say that.
It's massive, but that's why they had to put the huge chumrah on the other side, which we'll see now. She needs a get from both of the men. Get from her first husband to be Yotze on the Dorais, and the get from the second husband, because even though obviously her marriage to the second husband is null and void because she was married to another man at the time, nonetheless they said for the purposes of appearance, she needs a get from the second husband, right? So that people shouldn't say that she was divorced that the divorce from the first one came before the marriage to the second one. And okay, so at any rate, she needs it's a gezerah that she needs a get from the second man.
Okay.
The ein la kesuba, she forfeits her kesuba.
Right.
Okay. Lo peros, lo mezonos, lo belas, lo alze, velo alze. She has no claims from either husband for any of the normal things that she'd be able to claim at the termination of the marriage. Okay, the im natla mizeh mizeh tafsir, and if she had already seized property or whatever as collateral for her kesuba payments, she is obligated to return it. So sometimes we say in court, okay, that the once possession is 9/10 of the law. No, in this case, they will extract the money from her. Okay, v'havlad mamzer mizeh mizeh. So if she had children by the second husband, of course they're mamzerim because she was married to another man at the time. And if after her real husband returned, she went back to live with him, says the Tana, if she subsequently conceives from her first husband, then the child will also be a mamzer. Which Tana is saying this? Let's see how well you know this. Which Tana is saying that the child from her first husband now is going to be a mamzer?
I'm probably really wrong. I would say it sounds like Yossi, Rabbi Yossi.
This is Rabbi Akiva. Remember, we had a discussion about what creates a mamzer. We had that just a few Mishnas ago. Right. Mamzer, and Rabbi Akiva is the one who's the most machmir. It says that any negative prohibition on the relationship is going to create a mamzer, which means that includes if a person who takes back his divorcee who's been married in the interim, or one who remarries his chalutza, or there's several relationships that are forbidden by love.
So because she was with
Rabbi Akiva says that the child of that is a mamzer.
Because she was married to, because she married the second husband.
Right, because she was living with the second husband, so now she's asr lebal v'asr leboil.
Right.
Right, it's as if she's been living with, committing adultery the whole time, which means that she's prohibited back to her husband, but that's only by a love. Okay, so Rabbi Akiva is the one who says that her child, if she now returns to her first husband, that any child she has from him will be a mamzer. That's not the halacha, but Rabbi Akiva is the author of this Mishna.
Why would they just let her do this? Because it says her husband went overseas. They came and told her your husband died. She married him, and afterwards her husband came back. They just had this one person coming and saying your husband died.
Yes.
They just, how can they trust that? Because we have other mishnayos where we say these are my children.
It's not just a they. It's not just a they trust that. It's a she trusted it, and she trusted, and so she has to do her own investigation to be 100% sure. There's a massive burden of proof that falls onto her, because she must know, and she must be educated before she remarries to say, listen, you must realize that if your husband actually turns up, you're going to have a big penalty to pay. So she's going to say, okay, before I remarry, let me just be absolutely sure that my husband really is dead. And she'll make her inquiries and to get whatever circumstantial evidence she can to, various other stories that, he went into battle or he whatever. And she hears all the stories. Fine, she trusts that he's dead. Because if he turns up again, this is going to be a pretty bad situation for her.
She needs the proof. She really needs the proof. She has to really do her homework.
The best basically says to her, you have our permission to marry, but it's on your responsibility.
Right, it's on your head. Okay.
Okay. The law and if either of these two men are kohanim and she dies, they may not become tamei for her. Normally, a kohen is allowed to become tamei to bury his wife. In these cases, he's not allowed to become tamei to bury her because she's asked to him. And on the other hand, normally a wife, a husband has the rights to whatever his wife finds or whatever she makes or whatever, and if she makes a neder, then he's allowed to annul her neder. But all of these things are no longer valid for these marriages, even before they're officially dissolved with the get.
Right.
Okay. Aisa Bas Yisrael, if she was a Bas Yisrael, then if Salam Minat Kuna, then she's not allowed to marry a Kohen anymore because she's had a relationship with, of Isser. Okay, or Bas Levi, if she is a Bas Levi, she's not allowed to eat Maaser. So this now is according to Rabbi Meir, who holds that only Leviim are allowed to eat Maaser. Or Bas Kohen Minat Truma, and if she is a Bas Kohen, then she's no longer allowed to eat Truma. And Yorshim Shel Zeh, Yorshim Shel Zeh, Yorshim is Pesubasa. And the Yorshim of the husband, this is talking about the Pesubas Banim Dichrin. So there's if you recall from the last time we learned Kesubas, there's an implicit clause in the Kesuba that if a man has more than one wife, then in the Kesuba the sons of this particular wife will inherit her Kesuba.
Right.
So that she's in case they're competing sons from another wife, for the husband's estate. So normally the husband's estate is distributed evenly among all of his sons from all of his wives. Mm-hmm. But if the woman dies before the husband, and she's left sons, and now the husband dies, so the woman's estate first of all transferred to the husband, and now when he dies, his estate is going to be split among all his sons. But the Kesuba, the clause of the Banim Dichrin makes sure that the mother's Kesuba is inherited only by her side of the family, only by her children, not by the children of any other wives.
No, okay.
Okay, but what this says is that in Yorshim Shel Zeh v'Yorshim Shel Zeh Yorshim es Kesubasa, and there's no particular they don't get any precedence in terms of this. The whole clause of the Banim Differing falls away, so so that they don't get any special preference in the husband's estate. The Im Mesu. Now, what happens if the husband's died before her? So they haven't managed to give her a get yet, and one or both of the husbands die. So now they have to do chalitza, no yibum, because it was now an asur marriage. So she needs a chalitza from both sides. Rabbi Yossi Omer kesubasa al nichsei bala harishon. He says she can keep her kesuba on the property of her first husband. Right. So what's Rabbi Yossi's opinion? He says that the first husband still has to give her the money of a kasuba because it was a shogeg. He doesn't hold by all of these penalties over here. Is Rabbi Yossi. He's much more makil on the woman. Let her keep her kasuba from the first husband. Okay. Rabbi Elazar Omer Harishon Zakai b'Metziasa v'Maseyadehu b'Haparas Nedareha. And Rabbi Elazar goes even further and says that since the first marriage is really still intact, he has to divorce her, but nonetheless, before he does divorce her, he's still entitled to her Metzias and her Masiyadeh, and he can still do Haparas Nedarim on her. And Rabbi Shimon Omer Biasa o Chalitzasa me'achiv shel Rishon poteres tzarasa. He says that if the first husband, if both of the husbands die, let's say, then only the first husband's brother needs to do chalitza, or even bia. Says if he does bia, then if she has a co-wife, that exempts the co-wives as well. So they're holding that this is that the first marriage really is the ikar marriage over here, and furthermore, the ein havlad mimenu mamzer. And there's no, and if she has children backed by the first husband, there's no mamzeres, which of course is the halacha. However, if she remarried without requiring the permission of the court. Now, what does that mean without requiring the permission of the court? That means two kosher witnesses came and told her, your husband's dead. She doesn't need to go to court. Once she has two witnesses who came to her and said, we both saw your husband die, that's a complete aidus. So now she doesn't even need a court permission to remarry. All she needs to do is to remarry. So now if such a thing happened and two witnesses came and falsely testified that they saw her husband dead, and she remarried, and then her husband turns up again, muteres lachzor. Then says Rabbi Shimon, not only that, it's a complete ones, says Rabbi Shimon. She can go back to her first husband. Second husband disappears from the picture, doesn't need to give her a get. The whole thing was in error. So this is, of course, assuming her first husband is not a kohen, because a kohen is not allowed to live with a woman who, even b'shogeg, even b'ones. That's an unfortunate thing. If a kohen's wife was raped, even he still has to divorce her.
Was it right?
Right. So, but we're talking about Stam Yisrael, says Rabbi Shimon, in such a case where she had two witnesses and it was like a complete honest that she was living with another man, she can go back to her first husband and resume the marriage as it ever was. Okay. The halacha is not like any of the Tanaim. Rather, we don't actually make a distinction. The halacha is that we don't actually make a distinction whether it was with two witnesses or one witness. If we still place this burden of investigation on the wife to be very, very sure that her husband has actually died. Otherwise, she faces all of these financial penalties and she would have to be divorced from both husbands if her husband turns out actually to be alive.
If her first husband is a kohen and she gets raped, she can't go back to the husband.
That's correct.
Correct?
Yes.
Right, can't go back to the husband. If she's pregnant by this kohen, at the time of the rape, and she has a child, the child is not a mamzer because of
No, of course not.
no,
The child would be a kohen.
What do we call it? All right.
If the child is verifiably the child of the Kohen, then absolutely it's the child is a Kohen.
But he still has to give her a divorce, and
He still has to divorce her, but
Right.
but the child would be a Kohen.
right. Okay.
Okay.
That's quite a lot of stuff in here. In this.
Okay, Mishnah base. Nisayes Alpi based in. Okay, so now if she remarried by virtue of a based in giving her a heter to remarry, and then her husband comes back. Okay, so as we just learned, then she has to be divorced. However, she does not have to bring a korban for the arayos because the she did this avera with the permission of a beis din, and therefore she is patur from a chatas. So now this mission is just all the financial penalties apply, but at least she doesn't have to bring a chatas. Okay, lo nisays alpi beis din. But if, however, she got remarried on the basis of the two witnesses, and she didn't need a beis din for it, and then the situation comes about, then she still has to be divorced, and she's a chayv and a korban because the beis din wasn't involved. So this is the din of a shogeg.
Right.
She was shogeg, and she had relations with a man who wasn't her husband, and now she has to bring a chatas. Okay. Yeah, beis din. So says the Mishnah. This shows that this is the power of the beis din shepotra korban, that it exempts her from the korban at least. Paruha beis din linase. If the beis din gave her permission to remarry, and she went and married somebody who was asa to her. So, for example, let's say she remarried she was already a divorcee from before, and she now married a kohen, or she married a mamzer or somebody else that she's asked to marry. So even though the beis din had given her permission to remarry, the fact that she remarried somebody who was asked to her, now if her husband returns, she still has to bring a korban. The beis din only gave her permission to marry somebody who was kosher for her to marry. They didn't give her permission to marry somebody who's asa for her. So therefore, she would then also be chayv in the korban. So this mission is just talking about whether or not she has to bring a korban if her husband returns. Okay, Mishnah Gimel. So now we have another interesting set of circumstances where, so a woman has got a husband and one son, and the husband and the son go overseas. Okay, and they came back from overseas and said to her, so your husband died, and then your son died. So the order is important, because if the husband dies before the son, then she doesn't need a yibum, because the husband died with children. Okay, so now she's allowed to remarry. Venises. And now she goes and she remarries because she's allowed to marry anyone she chooses. Mistake, so sorry, the son died first and then the father. Okay, great. So now she really needed yibum. So now what's the issue over here is that she's a Yevamos l'shuk. That's an issur lav. It's not called an erva, but nonetheless it's a negative commandment that a woman who needs a chalitza and is asked to marry anyone else until she has a chalitza. Okay, teitze, she has to get a divorce from her husband, from a second husband. Vavlad rishon v'achron mamzer. So again, this is the opinion of which Tana?
Akiva.
Rabbi Akiva. Very good. Very good. So the Vlad Rishon. So whether she so Rishon v'achron. So let's just clarify who's a Rishon. The Vlad shenolad la lifnei misas ba'ala harishon. So if she married somebody before her first husband had died, of course that's going to be a mamzer because she was living with somebody who was not a husband. But achron, and that means any child that was born to her after her husband died and she was required to have a yibum, says this is again Rabbi Akiva's opinion. It's a negative commandment. He says that the child is a mamzer. La halacha, we wouldn't say it's a mamzer. Amrula. Now, what happens if it's the reverse case? They came and told her, "Meis banech achakach meis balech." Your son died and then your husband died. So now she says, "Okay, I need a yibum." So now the brother comes along, does yibum, nisyavma. Va'achakach amrula. We made a big mistake. It was really the son. It was really your husband who died first, and then the son. So now she's living with her husband's brother, Be'isur. Husband's brother, Be'isur, is an erba. Okay. So now, Tate says she needs a divorce from him. V'avlad rishon va'achron mamzer. To tell you the truth, technically she doesn't actually need a get from her husband's brother because it's an erba. The kiddushin is not chal, so she could really walk away from him without a get. But midrabanan they say he should give a get because of the appearances that the Beis Din have already told them to do it. Okay, let's say. V'avlad harishon v'achron mamzer, and in all cases here, this is a mamzer because whether it was before husband died, after husband died, the fact is that she's living with her brother, her husband's brother Be'isur, and even Chachamim agree that this is a mamzer because it's an erba. Amrula. Now, there's another case. They said to her, Meis balech, your husband died. The niece says, so she went and she remarried. V'achatach amrula, kayam haya v'meis. He was alive at the time that you married the second husband, but now he's dead. Say she has to get a divorce from the second husband. V'avlad rishon mamzer, v'achron eno mamzer. So any children that she had with the with her second husband while her first husband was alive is a mamzer. V'achron eno mamzer. But if after her husband had died, she carried on living with this man and she had more children. So any children that she conceived after her first husband died, they're kosher.
What happens in the case of the time period he went away, the first husband went away, she married, but it was in like a 3-month period. So we don't know if it's the first husband's baby or the second husband's baby.
So then you have a safek mamzer. That's
right.
cool. That's a situation of a safek mamzer, and there'll be all sorts of dinim in that respect. What do you do in the safek? All the chumras on the daraisas, and if there are any darabanans, then we'll go to kula. Okay. Amrula, if they said to her, Meis balech, then is kadsha. So all that happened was that while she was, she heard that her husband had died, and she accepted a kiddushin, but she didn't go to the chuppah yet. She hadn't moved in with her second husband. Now her husband returns. Since she never lived with the second husband, she can go straight back to her first husband. She doesn't even need to get from the second guy because she never lived with him. So it's clear that this was a complete mistake, and she never did any isur. And even if the second husband gave her a get, it was a meaningless act. It was like he gave a get to some woman in the shuk. That doesn't passel her from the kuhana. It's not a meaningful get. Es zod Rash Rabbi Elazar ben Masya. This is and it has a support for it that Rabbi Elazar ben Masya learned from the pasuk. Isha gerusha me isha. This is in the prohibitions of the Kohen marrying a divorcee. It says a woman who is divorced from her husband. Why do you have to have an extra word from her husband? Let's just say it's a woman who is divorced, obviously from her husband. So why is it me isha? Lo me ish eno isha, to exclude that she was divorced from a man who isn't her husband. So Kohen's allowed to marry a woman who received a get from a man who wasn't actually her husband. Okay, let's just do one set of chazaras over here. Unfortunately, I have to stop early because my daughter needs a ride to a bagrut.
Oh, okay, all right.
Let's do one set of chazaras from Yevamos, and then we'll stop.
We're in about one who cohabitates with his Yevama. Well, whether mistakenly or wantonly, whether coerced or willingly, even if he was mistaken and she was wanton, or he was wanton and she was mistaken, or he coerced her, but she was not, or she was coerced and he was not, whether the union was only partial or complete, he has acquired her. There is no distinction between the forms of cohabitation. Similarly, if one cohabitates with one of the arayos fridmin in the Torah, or those qualified for marriage, for example, a widow to a kohen gadol, a divorcee, a kaluta to an ordinary kohen, a mamzeres, a nisonite to an Israel, or a daughter of Israel to a mamzer and nisonite, he has disqualified her. There is no distinction between the forms of cohabitation. A widow who was married to a kohen gadol, or a divorcee, a kaluta who was married to an ordinary kohen, even if they were only betrothed, they may not eat truma. If Elazar and Shimon, however, validate, and if they were widowed or divorced, it was from marriage. If they are disqualified, but if from betrothal, they are qualified.
Okay.
All right. Did you mention, I got confused with the Friday